Hey guys, welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates III, and today I'm sitting down with my soon-to-be competitor in the Closers Olympics, Tadi. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, you're bright and early. This is what I love. This is commitment to making sure this podcast happens. What time is it there for you? 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
6:30 in the morning. She was willing to get up to record this podcast. So I love that. Thank you for doing this. So for the people that don't know who you are, give a brief intro of who you are and what it is that you do in real estate investing.
Yeah. So my name's Tadi. I am a virtual wholesaler. I buy rental properties as well, but I started off just virtually wholesaling. I was laid off during the pandemic in April of 2020. I was laid off my job as a waitress, and I basically just had to figure something out. I'm a single mom. So I got on YouTube. I'd heard about wholesaling. Someone actually came to the restaurant and sat in my section, and he had this little business card that said real estate problem solver. And I went on his Instagram, and he was a flipper from Texas, actually from Dallas. And I just messaged him like, "How did you get started?" And he was like, "Wholesaling." And I read this book. If you can't wholesale after this, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So I ordered the book on Amazon. I'm like, okay, this sounds fairly easy. And I went on YouTube and I just started calling people in Las Vegas and just getting cussed out and hung up on. I'm like, okay, this is not easy. I don't know what I was doing. And I thought about it and I'm like, I just thought about the concept of wholesaling. I'm like, why would anybody in Las Vegas want to wholesale their house? They can sell it for more. This is like 2020. Everything was
Right.
really expensive. And so I started calling people in Ohio because of YouTube. I heard about virtual wholesaling. So I started calling people in Ohio. And on the third day, someone was like, yes, I want to sell. And I got a deal on my third day calling. After calling Vegas for 2 weeks and getting nothing, I was like, oh my God, this is real. This works. And I got 6 deals in those first like 3 weeks of cold calling, but I was cold calling like 10 hours a day. I got 6 deals, and that was my introduction to virtual wholesaling. So needless to say, I was hooked and obsessed, and um, I have not stopped since. So I've been a virtual wholesaling uh, like gospel preacher, basically.
I love that. So, a couple things to unpack in that intro there. The book you're talking about is written by Todd Fleming, and that he was on the podcast when that book came out. That is the most listened to episode of the Titanium Vault there's ever been.
Oh wow.
The episode with Todd Fleming, partially due to the fact that I just titled it, "If You Can't Wholesale After This Interview, We've Got Nothing for You." So essentially, it was his book title. Got some good SEO there, but Todd's been a repeat guest on here. He came out with his second book, "If You Can't Cash Flow After This, We've Got Nothing for You." Great guest, great guy. So that's awesome that you learn how to do virtual wholesaling. And also, the thing that I love about it is that you pivoted out of your backyard super quick, because that is like one of the things that I see people just die on the vine when they're like, "Hey, I'm based out of Vegas or California or Utah or Oregon," and it's like, "I've been trying for 6 months and I've never got a deal," and it's like, have you tried Ohio? Have you tried Indiana? Like, if you just give them a shot, you're gonna get a deal. So I'm that's pretty awesome that you were able to make that pivot. Did you choose Ohio because that's where Todd is from? Is that what made you go there?
No, so I have like a very obsessive personality. So I knew like I'm gonna find something because I had joined maybe 30 Facebook wholesaling groups. So I was like, I'm gonna find a market in these wholesaling groups. And I had like a little, I'm like a paper person. So I had like a little piece of paper like this. And I wrote different places. And every time I saw the same state come up, and I just kept seeing Ohio and all these for 20,000, 23,000. I'm like, no way, our house is that cheap. And I think I'm like, it was kind of another like intuition kind of thing too, because when I was just having my son, I used to look up where are the biggest houses for the cheapest, and it was
Right.
always Ohio. So when I saw Ohio kept coming up, I'm like, okay, this is the universe telling me Ohio. And I just did Cleveland because that was the biggest city I could think of, which was crazy. So because I ended up buying a triplex in that first like 6 weeks on seller finance. I didn't even know what seller finance was,
I
but I
love
bought
it.
it from a wholesaler on seller finance. In those same 6 weeks, I found a partner. I did a lot of things prematurely. And then I just like, I didn't even watch a YouTube video about a lot of things. I did them. I learned my mistake, maybe made money or lost money, but I just like learned the hard way when it came to everything.
I love it. Let's go back to where you got laid off from your job. Okay. You're a waitress in Vegas. You
Yeah.
get laid off from your job. I mean, I would say 99.9% of people in that position are going to be back out the next day, going to every single restaurant, every single bar, and putting in applications to get another job doing the exact same thing. What was it about that moment? Was there like a single thing that stood out that said, hey, I need to take control of my own destiny and go get or create something myself instead of getting another job?
So everything was closed because it was COVID. So
Okay.
everything was closed. That was one thing. But I definitely could have did like DoorDash or something. That was my other thought. Like maybe I'll do food delivery.
Right.
But I do have the kid and my mom had some medical things, so I didn't want to get her sick. She just literally sold her house and COVID happened.
Oh,
And it was like I was worried about her going to look at houses to buy. So I told her just come move in with me. I gave her the master bedroom. So I'm in the office of my house. So I'm in this tiny room. I put a bed in there. Um and the other side of it is I had always tried to start businesses. I failed 6 businesses before this worked. I still have like 5,000 pairs of eyelashes in my garage because I never could sell them. I've always tried to start businesses and failed. So I saw it as an opportunity. I saved up a little money when I was waitressing. So I was like, okay, well, I can't get a job. Unemployment was $350 a week. So I knew that wasn't going to pay rent. All my coworkers were like, we're not going to pay rent. We don't have to because of this COVID thing.
right.
But I was scared. I'm like, I don't want to not pay rent. And then after 6 months, oh, $10,000. Like, so I was like, I got to figure some way out to pay rent and pay bills and stay afloat during this. And I thought if nothing else, I can learn a new skill and maybe not have to go back to work when COVID is over. And I thought COVID would be over in like 3 months. So I was like, I might have 3 months of just calling people, playing around. But the other part of it, when I saw people on YouTube making cold calls, I'm like, none of these people seem that good or that smart. Like, this doesn't seem that hard. And I know that's like now doing it for a couple years is like, yeah, it's hard, but it's a different kind of hard. The only reason it's hard is the consistency. So I was like, this doesn't seem that hard. The Wholesale to Millions guy, he had a very thick accent. I was like, if he
Yeah.
can do this, why can't I? I've done phone sales jobs before in a call center. So it was kind of like if they could do it, I can do it kind of mentality. And I'm so grateful for his name's Lawrence, who came and sat in my restaurant and just opened my eyes to the possibility of that.
Right. That's amazing. I have an idea for you. The next time you wholesale a deal in Ohio, what you should do is be like, the price is 25,000 as is, but for 26,000, I'll throw in 500 eyelashes and see just see if you can wholesale it with the house the next time you wholesale one of those cheap Ohio houses.
I don't
So,
know if eyelashes expire, but I feel like they're expired at this point.
I love it. So, you get started, you're cold calling, you get a wave of deals there pretty early on. What about like the disposition side of things? Because you were very early on. You didn't really know what you were doing. Were you just utilizing Facebook groups, or how were you dispoing the deals?
Yeah, so I went in all the Cleveland Facebook groups. I copied and pasted everybody's email address that ever commented on any deal for like
Right,
the past 6 months, which obviously got me a lot of wholesalers, but it helped me meet a lot of people. So I did get snaked by wholesalers, like everything happened.
right,
So, but I just learned the hard way. But my first deal I ended up dispoing with the real estate agent. It's crazy, but I got an offer for 37,000, which was, I locked it up at like 34. Um, I mean, everything that could go wrong wouldn't go wrong. I met a boots on the ground off Facebook too. He went to the guy's house, told him I was wholesaling it, like straight up was like, she's doing this thing. It's called wholesaling, where she's shopping the house to end buyers. So the people who are really going to buy the house are going to come look at, told everything, which I didn't lie, but obviously I didn't say all of that. And then the
right.
guy called me and was like, that's what you're doing? You didn't tell me that? I said, well, I did say I had multiple exit strategies because I'm watching the YouTube videos. And then he told me, you have until Monday, and it was Friday. And he's like, and if you don't have money down and earnest money down by Monday, then no. and I literally sold it on Sunday. So I sold it through a realtor. She had a out of the country buyer, and someone made me an offer for 37,000. I said yes right away, but I didn't send a contract. This was my first other. I made like 8 mistakes. Then she told me the guy wants to buy it for $52,000, and I had already said yes to 37. So what am I supposed to do? So then I lied to the first buyer and was like, "Oh, I had already sold it to someone else. I'm sorry. I forgot." Like, I don't even remember what I said, but he cussed me out and he got so mad, and never did that again. But she ended up saying anything over 50,000 I'll take, and she like cut herself out of the deal. So she made $2,000 and I made like $15,000, and that was like my first deal.
I love it. Well, that's a crash course right there, and all the things that could happen when you're wholesaling, right? I mean, the boots on the ground, telling the seller what wholesaling is. I will say that's scary when it happens for the first time, but when you're experienced, it's kind of one of those things where it's like the best way to handle that is kind of the nonchalantly just explain it to the seller, like, well, of course, that's just one of the things that we do. At the end of the day, if you get your money, aren't you happy? That's kind of how we kind of handle it nowadays, and it really works a lot. Where they're like, yeah, you're right. We did agree on 32,000. So if I get my 32,000, I'll be happy. So that's but scary, especially when it's your first deal.
It was. I thought he ruined it. I was so mad, but I gave him $1,500 too at the end of it all, just for going and taking pictures and stuff.
Love it. So where did you go from there? You get this wave of deals. Did it just the momentum continue, or where did your journey take you from there?
So right away, like, it was also my birthday month, so I figured this was like my birthday present from God. So I went on like a 2-week vacation in San Diego, and I like sat around the beach, and I realized, oh shoot, if I'm not calling people, I'm not gonna have any deals. So luckily I figured that out after like 2 weeks though, so it wasn't a crazy period of time. So I came back to Vegas and I got back on it. I definitely wasn't doing like 6 deals a month though. That was a good wave. That was a good first.
Right.
And I would say like after that, sometimes I would do 2 deals, 3 deals, but I was definitely still on the phone all day. I hired one cold caller that I got from a VA service at the time. So I was paying $5 an hour. And then he hit me up on Facebook and was like, "Hey, they fired me, but can I still work for you?" And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "I'll charge you $3 an hour." I was like, "Okay, even better." So he started working for me full time, 8 hours a day. I was still calling for 8 hours a day. So if I didn't have a lead from him, I'd still be cold calling. And I was just using a single line dialer. Like, I didn't know a lot about a lot of things yet. So I was just still calling people. I had 2 hot zip codes in Cleveland. I was only calling those 2. So I'm getting all my deals from those 2. But my first year, I did like 30 something deals. And I was just doing that. I was just calling and posting the deal on Facebook and emailing that same buyers list. And I would talk to buyers, I would talk to agents, I would talk to property managers. And I ended up learning Cleveland, just like it was somewhere I lived. And
Right.
it really served me. I mean, I don't even know. It's crazy to even think about that now, because now I'm in all these different markets and I don't know them as well. But learning Cleveland was like a second home. And I even ended up, I'll tell you later, but I even ended up moving there because I felt so connected to it because I made so much money there. Definitely my first time ever making 6 figures in my life, having money in my bank account. So it was life changing. And I
Well,
met
30
some really good.
deals, 30 plus deals in your first year, especially where you came from. I mean, there's one thing when it's like, hey, I went and I joined an education program, and this mentor told me step by step exactly what to do. And I went and mirrored it, and I made, I did 30 deals. It's another one you're like, hey, I got laid off, and I just turned on YouTube and I bought a book, and I just failed forward. But I think the moral of that story was you were constantly on the phones.
Yeah.
That's where people don't want to be. And I think we'll get into it later on, but it's also what's kind of gotten you into probably the Closers Olympics, where it's like, hey, I know where the money's made. It's made by being on the phones and talking to sellers. So many people get wrapped up in all the other little details of like, what dialer should I be using? What list should I be calling? What market should I be in? It's like every market has wholesale deals. For you, you chose Cleveland. You could have chosen, I don't know, 4 or 5 different cities in Ohio. It could have been Toledo. It could have been Columbus. It could have been Dayton.
For
It could have been
sure.
Cincinnati. You
For
just
sure.
chose Cleveland, and it worked. But it was the consistency of being on the phones. So when did you decide, hey, 2 zip codes in Cleveland, not going to cut it. Let's branch out from there. How did you make that evolution?
So my whole thing was like time on the phone. So I would spend a lot of time on sellers and at least like 2-3 hours on buyers and agents. I think that's the other side that people don't want to do as well. But that's what gives you insight on the market, especially in the beginning. Like you could call somebody in Cleveland and get the information, but I didn't have any friends or connections in the industry. So I was talking to a lot of agents and a lot of people, and I realized if Cleveland is like a circle, all of this is bad and hood, and people don't want to buy there. And there's only a small amount of the city that people do want to buy. And then when you go to the suburbs, you might as well be in Vegas because houses are very expensive, very
Right.
competitive. People are building, flipping really hard, heavy there. So I realized, okay, those are all competitive. And my thing is always the path of least resistance. What's easiest? So I'm like, okay, what's another market like Cleveland that has a couple zip codes that are gentrifying, but is still very hood and doesn't have as much competition. And doing the same research I did for Cleveland, I stumbled across St. Louis. And Missouri is a non-disclosure state. So I think that was like the other side of the sword that made it easier for me than other people. I literally only focused on 2 zip codes. I met one, and that's my thing. I'll focus on 2 zip codes, find one boots on the ground that also like dabbles so they know what areas are good, bad, what streets are good, bad. And they become my eyes and ears. So I picked 2 zip codes in St. Louis, South City, and did the same thing there, the exact same, copied and pasted what I did in Cleveland. And it was so cool because St. Louis, I actually got to do those deals with my cousin. My cousin called me, was like, I see what you're doing with real estate. I want to do wholesaling. He has a trucking business in Fresno, California. And I was like, okay, so I've been calling so many people. I'll get the lead, you call the people, and then I'll sell the deal. So that was my first acquisitions. And we
Right.
did like 7 deals in like 2 months. And one deal ended up being a $70,000 deal. So we
Wow.
split it 50-50, and then he just ghosted me. So then I was on my own.
Your first lesson in having people work for you, right? They're like,
He's gone.
I'm gonna go do this on my own and make 70,000 by myself. I don't want the 35,000. I love it. St. Louis is one of our early markets as well. And it's funny because we also, when we went there, it was specifically 2 zip codes, but we were on the northern part. We were in 63136 and 63137. So Glasgow Village, the Jennings area up there. And that was just because we had a portfolio of deals and we got stuck, and that's where we thought we were supposed to be. And looking back at it, that's not where you're supposed to be.
I don't like 63136. I don't know what it is about it, but it was always really hard for me to sell a deal there.
Yeah, no one wants to buy. And
Yeah.
that's why we ended up there, because we thought we were doing something great, and it was like, no, anybody can buy these deals. You're not doing anything that's
That's exactly the pitfall of virtual wholesaling. It's so easy to get deals. So I always do the whole hot zip codes list source hack, and I look for the hottest zip codes, and then I make sure that they're actually gentrifying, like driving around Google Earth, like something is happening over there. Because same thing in Cleveland, there's 44112 East Cleveland. You can get a deal for like $0. They'll like pay you to buy the houses, but it's because it's like the intersection of 2 gangs and people die there so much. No one wants to buy. So I get a lot of my people will get
I've
deals
had
there.
so many deals under contract in Cleveland where it's like people are just like, no, dude, you would have to pay me 10 grand to buy that. And then I'm like, I'm just asking $10,000. And they're like, yeah, again, you would pay me. And even then, I don't think I would want it.
It wouldn't even be worth the rehab. And that's why a lot of people say like, well, I tried Cleveland like you and it didn't work. Or they send me all these deals. Like, Tadi, I got all these deals from Cleveland. You're the Cleveland girl, move them. And I'm like, no, I'm not that Cleveland girl. I can't move anything. You got to know what you can, got to know when to move them or when to like trash them. So it's just really specific zip codes. But going out into other markets, it's not like that. Like Jacksonville, it could be the hood and people will still buy it. And other like real up and coming cities, it's not really like that. But if you're going to do Cleveland, St. Louis, Indianapolis, stuff like that, you got to really watch out.
So would you say the majority of the markets that you're in today are like Midwest and Sun Belt states, kind of those what I always refer to as our bread and butter markets, where it's like it's easy to get a deal. You're not going to have the biggest of spreads, but it's also going to be relatively easy to dispo as long as you're avoiding the hood and you're avoiding the super high end parts of the market. Is that kind of like your bread and butter now?
Yeah, exactly. Still Cleveland, Maryland. So pretty much like Baltimore, but I know Baltimore a little bit well as well, so I know what areas to like completely avoid. And Baltimore's good because you can go on Google Earth and you can pretty much see like if there's crowds of people outside, it's probably a bad street if they're all boarded up.
Right.
So it's just kind of learning each market. Georgia, Florida, Texas, which can be challenging because it is really competitive.
Yep.
But I would say like bread and butter markets still like Richmond, Virginia, North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, Georgia, Texas, I will say are harder than those other ones.
Are you still mainly cold calling to generate your leads?
Yeah, so we're still mainly cold calling. We have some PPC and a lot of like referral leads. Like
Yep.
people will send me like lists of like 30 leads or 50 leads because they know they're never going to call them. And then those go into our system. So it's funny, but this year, pretty much all the deals we've closed besides two have been from over a year ago.
Yep. And it's just about the follow up, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's the key. And also just making sure that your company as a whole is staying on the phones, whether that is new leads. It's funny you bring that up. I mean, I don't think in 2023 I've pulled a new list, but maybe like 5 or 6 times. The majority of the lists that we're cold calling are just data that we pulled back in 2020, 2021.
Yes.
And I've got a ton of leads where it's like I talk to them and it's like, dude, I've been calling you since 2020, and they're still like, I'm still not quite ready to sell, but the follow up is what's eventually going to lead to us getting that contract.
So
Um,
for these 50 days, are you calling your leads from your system?
so a lot of ours are inbound leads from like Speed to Lead and Lead Solo, so PPC. But I have 8 cold callers, VAs that are cold calling that they push the leads to me. And that's what I'm talking about there. Those cold call leads, it's not like I'm giving them fresh data. It's very similar to yours, where it's like, hey, we've had this list for a long time, and we just keep cold calling it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Um, so you talked about like places like Maryland. It's interesting because people do get wrapped up in when they're thinking about going to a new market. They think it's supposed to be Baltimore, right? Because that's the city that they know. It's the city that has the most population. But in reality, like the majority of deals that we've done in that general area are going to be the smaller cities on the outskirts, like the
Yes.
Capitol Heights, the District Heights, places like that. Not necessarily like Baltimore proper. Is that similar to what you're seeing on your deals as well?
Yeah, because so Baltimore City, like just the little inner part, I would say is really tough because it's really rough. Or it's like multi-million dollar like
Right.
townhouses. It's there's nothing in between really. But the in between the city and the county, there's all those little neighborhoods, like you were saying. Right now, we have a triplex in Gwen Oak under seller finance that we're selling. So it's just those little neighborhoods all around. And then even like from the path from Baltimore to DC, there's all those little towns like Laurel and
Yep.
every little market like that is its own full market. If the population is over 20,000 people, you have a lot of, juice there, and then people are commuting from DC because DC is too expensive to live. So there is a lot of opportunity, and then flippers, they love PG County, so if you can find anything there, it'll sell really fast. So I think that is a really really good market. It's just being able to learn it in a way that you're not getting so stuck on the city. Because the same thing there, you'll find houses and not be able to sell them for $1.
You know what's hilarious is I talk to so many wholesalers that they talk about the difficulties of virtual wholesaling, like what we're doing, where essentially it's like, hey, we're in all the markets, right? And they talk about, well, that must be extremely hard because you don't know the market as well as, say, the local investor or the local wholesaler. You're right, we don't. But as time goes on, and every deal that we do, we learn something. And I think there is a skill set to virtual wholesaling where it's about just remembering and like making sure your team remembers every little detail that every buyer tells you, every flipper tells you, like, hey, you don't cross that street. Okay. Make sure acquisitions knows in this city, you don't cross that street. And before long, you do kind of narrow down like this is where we're going to get our deals, and that's going to be our niche for Atlanta, Georgia, or that's going to be our niche for Jacksonville, Florida, and it works because the thing is, and I'm sure you're the same way, we're not trying to do 20 deals a month in one specific city. It's, hey, can we get 2 or 3?
Yeah,
that would be amazing because
yeah.
we're going to get 2 or 3 in like 6 other markets. Is that kind of like your strategy with all of these different markets?
Yeah, and it's so funny that you say that, but I think yes, that's it's kind of on accident too. I'm not gonna lie, just because the leads are from everywhere and I can't
Right.
super control it. Because I was market hopping, so I still have leads, and then my partner was market hopping, and then plus all of our community who's like, help me close this deal, help me close this deal. All of that, we have over like 7,000 leads in our overall system. They're from everywhere. So it's funny because we had this call the other day, and I was like, what if we just did Jacksonville and Cleveland? And it was like, how could we just do Jacksonville and Cleveland when we have 7,000 leads from everywhere? We're not going to throw all the leads away.
Right.
So we're kind of stuck in it, whether we like it or not. And I would say the one caveat to all of this is the rural markets. It really sucks when you have these deals in the middle of nowhere because you can't really do anything with them but try to like novate it, list it with the seller and hope that someone buys it.
Right.
I would say that's the challenge. But I also think when you get really good at virtual wholesaling, you start to realize that every city is the same, like in its own way. Every city is the same. So you're able to kind of drive for dollars on Google Earth and realize like, oh, this looks like this in this neighborhood. This probably isn't a good area. We got a deal in Texas, and there was just so many people sitting on their porch. And same thing with one in Nashville. It can be this market that sounds good, but then you see the actual street and you're okay, first red flag. And then I go into crime heat maps. Okay, it's red. It's not a good area. It's a red
Right.
zone. And then I look at the school district, 1 out of 10. Okay, this is probably not the best area. And then, I reverse engineer it. Prop stream, cash buyers. How many cash buyers are there? Not that many. There's 80,000 cash buyers, but only 3,000 houses bought in this area. Okay, so this is probably one of those properties was going to be very hard to move. So let's get it under the lowest cash comp
Right.
on the whole list, And if you do that, you can't, if you get it cheaper than the cheapest house that ever sold, you can't really fail. So that's my kind of rule of thumb.
Well, what you just said right there is virtual wholesaling gold. And I think it's the thing that people struggle with the most. So if you didn't catch it, I'm going to repeat it in my words. What we refer to that as, and this is going to be specific to places like majority of Ohio cities, St. Louis,
Yes.
Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, Jacksonville, Florida, these places, this is what you have to do. You have your ARV comp, right? And you can reverse engineer that where it tells you, hey, my MAO should be 30,000. The problem with that is if you got 20 as is cash sales at 15,000, your cash buyers are going to say, why would I buy your house for 30,000 when I can just go on the MLS and buy any of these for 15,000? That's in certain markets, especially when you say you're coming from a Vegas or a Dallas Fort Worth or California, where you're not used to that. You don't see houses at those price ranges. This is an adjustment that you have to make. It's not just about your ARV comp and then reverse engineering and where it would be. It's about also paying attention to those as-is comps that have sold, because that's your competition that you're going against. I think that's the thing people struggle with the most. That's where people want to make the excuse and say, I just don't understand Jacksonville, Florida. And it's actually easier because it's saying literally you've got 10 comps right here saying where cash buyers are willing to pay. So just get it for less than that, and that's what you can sell it for. So it actually is a little bit easier to
It's way
analyze deals.
easier.
Yeah.
It's way Do you remember in school when they used to teach like mean, median, mode, and range? And
Yes.
mode is the most often occurring number. So in all of these cities, if you look for the mode, the most often occurring number, you'll see in Cleveland it might be something sold for 127. There's some 80s, there's some 60s, but then you'll see 23, 24, 27, 23, 22. And it's like in your mind, tell yourself, I'm not going to be able to sell this over 22 if that's the mode. So get it for 15. And I think that the scary part is offering 15,000 when something sold for 127. People get in their head about that. But the sellers know, everybody knows. The person that bought it for 127 was the uneducated investor who messed up and they probably lost money on it. And it's very hard when you first start in a market. You can lose your reputation really quickly. I think that's the other thing. Like buyers will block your unsubscribe. They'll stop taking you seriously. They'll be like, this is the girl who had, and then the second part of that is like, don't argue with the buyers. Once you get the feedback, tell them, thank you. I'm new to this market and I'm just learning, so that they'll keep their door open to you. There's so much defensiveness and people just want to know everything.
Yep.
So they like shoot themselves in the foot, because if I did that in the beginning, I would have lost all of my buyers who are now my friends, because they would have been like, this girl thinks she knows everything. She's trying to come into our market. And I had people tell me that too. Like, who do you think you are, just coming to this market, blah, blah, blah. But I just stayed open-minded and understood that I have no clue about this market. So let me take the buyer feedback, go back to the seller with that. Originally I thought because I saw this number, but now I know. And I tell the seller too, I'm new to this area. I came from Vegas. I'm just new to investing here. So I don't want to, I don't want to buy something that's going to make me lose money. And they
They're
understand too.
they're our customer and they're our educator. Like
Yes.
they're the ones that sit there and say, this is where I need to be and this is the reason why. And if you hear that on repeat by 3 or 4 buyers, then it's fact. Like they're not lying to you.
No.
They're telling you the facts. And you at that point in time, it's just up to you to go perform for them and
Or
take
I tell you that, or RJ tells you that, like, just believe it, because a lot of people will come to me with deals too, and they'll argue with me
Oh
like,
yes.
this is a 10 cap. Like,
Yeah.
okay, it's a 10 cap, but you can get a 30 cap in Cleveland. Like, that doesn't
Right.
mean anything.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because we probably say no to about 90% of our JV deals
Same.
where they come in and we're like, no, we're not seeing the numbers. And they're like, what are you talking about? And it's like, you're clearly new to Cleveland. Let us explain this to you. This is what's happening. And it's just not a movable deal. And it's not that we're perfect on our numbers either. That's just part of virtual wholesaling. You're never going to be perfect on it. Especially when we've got a deal in Cleveland right now. I'll talk to you about it after the podcast, where the seller was just like, hey, I want 5,000. I mean, realistically, it's hard to negotiate someone down from 5,000 because it's like, there's only so much room there,
Right.
There are certain parts of the United States where you just can't move a deal.
Yeah.
Like there's just not margin there for anyone involved. And that's why you see places like Jackson, Mississippi, Shreveport, Louisiana, Cleveland, Ohio, just literally knocking houses down and creating a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Because they know there's no value here. It's just a nuisance at this point.
Yeah.
So let's transition to now. Here we are, 2023. You've been in this for a couple of years, and somehow you have now gotten wrangled into being a part of this crazy thing that we call the Closers Olympics. I've been blessed to be a part of it for 3 years now. I'm excited because we had Lauren last year. Now you'll be officially the second female that has participated. We have a chance to have another one that's competing in the last qualifying round. But talk about that, because this is a big deal. The first year that we rolled this out, it was a shit show in 2020. I don't know if you saw that or
I
not, but
did. I was like 3 months into wholesaling when it came out.
yeah, we rolled it out, and the feedback was like either one of two things: this is amazing, or where are the women? Hey, you got 12 dudes competing. And then last 2021 we rolled it out, and we had Lauren Crowell, and now this year you're officially the second woman. So talk about that. What does that feel like to be the second woman to ever compete in the Closers Olympics?
I mean, I'm excited. I think it's fun. I was on Steven Morales's deal desk, so I guess that was my qualifier. That's my first time ever. I mean, I've cold called in front of my team because we do the virtual office thing and stuff sometimes, but that was my first time ever cold calling in front of a bunch of people live on YouTube. So I was a little bit nervous because I didn't want to mess up. I think we always have those calls where you get off the phone and you're like, dang, I should have said this or that. No matter how many calls you have, there's always sometimes you still have that. So I was just like, I just hope there's nothing really big that I forget to say. And I was sucking. Like I don't know if I was sucking or I just wasn't getting anything good, but finally the last dude I talked to, we got an agreement on deal desk. So I guess Elijah watched that and said I'm a closer and was like, you're really good at this, so come on the Closers Olympics. Wholesaling is real estate in general is definitely male dominated, so I'm not surprised that it's been all guys. I think sales in general is very male dominated, so i'm I'm
Is it a big deal
excited.
for you that you're a woman competing? Like, is there any sort of like, hey, this means something to me, or is it kind of like, no, I'm Toddy, and I'm showing up to do my thing for me?
Yeah, I guess I didn't see it as like I'm breaking a glass ceiling or something. I think that
I
maybe
mean,
I
and
am. Maybe I'm
listen,
under.
I've been doing it for 3 years. It is a big deal. Even now, they're saying it. I mean, I've seen the comments on some of the posts where it's like, why is there only one woman? Why aren't there more? And to your point, it is a male dominated industry, but it's also another thing. There's not enough women in this industry that are creating content around this.
Right.
And it's like you said, you put yourself out there. You went on Stephen Morales' deal desk, and Elijah saw you and said, hey, we want to showcase your talents. There's not enough of that, in
There's
my
not.
opinion. It's like, hey, if you're a woman out there and you feel slighted because you haven't gotten invited, let's look back and see how many cold calls have you put out there on YouTube? How many have you put out on Instagram? I mean, I've put tens of thousands. That's why I get to do it. So that's kind of the difference. And in my opinion, it's only a topic because people make it a topic. At the
For
end of the
sure.
day, what I'm more impressed by with you is the choices that you've made over the past 3 years. You got laid off during a pandemic. You chose to go create something for yourself when you had already failed 6 times on 6 other businesses. That's more impressive to me than the fact that you're a female. I mean, just
I
my
think
opinion.
I feel like that's the part to where I don't feel like this is special because I'm a female. I feel like whether I was a male or a female that I deserve to be here anyway, just
Right.
because of the work that I've done and the things that I've been able to do within the context of wholesaling or sales in general. And then the flip side of that is it's kind of like, and I don't know, this probably is a bad thing to say, but it's kind of like the same thing that people say when it comes to like why is it only a certain number of people in a certain arena, right? Well, if you just look at it numbers wise, if there's 10,000 wholesalers and only 300 are women, there's just going to be less just because statistically, like it's impossible. You guys would have to rig it to put more, like to make it an equal amount of men and women. It just wouldn't even be accurate to the scape of the business we're in.
And here's the thing. The Closers Olympics is supposed to be a competition, but it's also supposed to be educational for the people that watch. So the reality of it is they want to make sure that the best closers are the ones that are in the competition showing. And so at the end of the day, that can only be based around the owners of the Closers Olympics have to be able to see and verify, hey, are you skilled at being on the phones?
Right.
And if that content is not available, then how can they make that choice? And then at the end of the day, if they want 12 people to be in the competition and the 12 best closers in the world that are willing to compete are men, or if they're women, I think those should be the 12 people that are on there, not
Definitely.
equal. It should be, hey, this is educational. So someone like you who loses their job in 2023 can watch me on the phones and say, I can do what that guy does. He doesn't do anything.
Exactly.
Let me go change
Exactly.
my life so I can create something so I don't have to go get another job at a restaurant or something like that. That's the point in the Closers Olympics.
100%.
Now, let's talk about, you've only done this on the deal desk. Have you done more lives, or are you, how prepared are you for the Closers Olympics?
So I'm practicing now on camera. I don't know what it's going to look like. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the camera is really going to look like, but my idea of what I'm going to do is, ideally, I won't be able to see any of you guys or hear anything or do nothing, because I just want to be able to focus and just have the conversation with the seller. I don't want to like hear anybody critiquing me, or I don't want to see anybody. I just want it to be like, I'm doing this, but I just don't know exactly what it's going to be like. So I don't really know what to prepare for, but I'm like turning my StreamYard on and recording and just talking to people. But it's
That's
like, I don't
pretty
know, it's
similar to
weird
what
because
it
I
is.
even
I will tell you, the judges can be a distraction for sure.
can you turn
Especially if
them off?
you can
Okay.
you can turn it down. The problem is you do need to be able to see the shot clock, right? So the clock starts when you talk to your first person. You have 30 minutes at that point in time. You do need to see where you are in regards to that. I have in the past not turned down the volume on the judges. And the reason why is because I bring in a little bit of showmanship to it. So there's times where they'll say something and I'll essentially talk back to them through the seller. But that's just me and my personality. I don't get easily distracted on things like that. But I have seen a lot of people get distracted by the judges saying something and then they try to fix it. And it's like, no, you should have just continued down the path that you were going down. And I also think that's just because there's certain people that are not on the phones every day. The reality of it is if you're on the phone with sellers every day, you should feel super comfortable just getting into your box and just doing what you do on a daily basis. That's the reality of it. Don't worry about the shot clock. Don't worry about some guy over here saying something about what you just said or something like that. You go do you, because the reality of it is that there's no one judging the Closers Olympics that's ever won a Closers Olympics. So who are they really to judge?
Yeah. And that's the funny part. So right now in my business, I'm not on the phone every day. So I think that's what made me nervous and made me practice. Like now I'm calling people just because
Right.
I'm like, okay, I need to really get back, even though it's not, it's kind of like riding a bike. Like it's the same conversation essentially, but I still want to be like, have had a lot of conversations before that day. Because I'm the dispo and the lead gen, and then my partner runs the acquisitions, and he doesn't even talk to sellers as much because now we have a team. There's like 3 other guys who talk to sellers all day long.
Right.
But we do trainings and we do call calibration, so I'm still like in the thick of it. I still talk to sellers all the time just because they're my sellers, like they came through my referrals or whatever. But it's never been a thing to where it's like, oh, you have to talk to a seller. It's just, I need to call Jenny or whoever it is.
Right.
But now in the context of the Closers Olympics, it adds some extra heat to it. And I want to say the right things. And I even wrote down like the criteria, so
Yep.
that when I talk to sellers right now, I'm just like glancing at it, and the creative option is so awkward to put into every single thing because it doesn't even always make sense. But
Right.
I'm trying to throw it in, like, have you considered, just at least throw it in there so I can get the 5 points.
So let me
Funny.
ask you this. Well, I'll say one thing and then I'll ask you a question. one thing advantage that you have is that you're already doing virtual wholesaling. So that in and of itself will make you differentiate yourself from the majority of people because they struggle with, hey, I'm a Texas wholesaler and I got a lead in North Carolina, and they're relying on the whoever's doing the comping in the background, the comp for them. They don't know how to discuss the area, and you know how sellers are. So, have you ever done a deal before in Raleigh, North Carolina? I mean, you can either lie and the seller might see through it, or in our case, we could say, well, yeah, we've done deals in North Carolina all the time. So I think that's one thing that you can leverage and use to your benefit. Now, my question to you is, what should people expect to see from you? You know, I mean, they get to see 12 of us on day one. And it's $97 to get a ticket to watch us. So it's basically free for the amount of content that you're going to get. You're going to get day one, which is the open run. Then you're going to get Saturday with all of us. Tadi and I will each have 30 minutes to advance to the finals. And then we get an hour on Sunday to win the belt. So what can people expect to see from you, and why should they attend this event?
So, my, I guess if you want to say style or what I can credit all of my deals from the very first deal where I had no experience to the deal that I'm doing now where, this woman's daughter is like passing away in the hospital. My thing has always been creating an emotional connection. I think that's a huge advantage that women have that they never think of or take advantage of. Um, People want to talk to a woman. Like if you were going to get a therapist, you probably would pick a woman.
Yep.
Anything, everyone wants a woman's ear. It's just we have a kinder, softer tone. We're harder to be mean to. And I really leverage that, and I also care, so it's not that hard to ask them deeper questions and share some stuff with myself. Obviously, every conversation is different depending on the kind of seller I have. I don't get like that with everybody, but my hope is that I get someone on the phone who has a story that they need to share with somebody, and I get to be that somebody, and I get to be the ear they need that day, because all of my deals, and especially the best ones, have always come from someone going through something and feeling really comfortable with me and being able to share that. And I just want to show people that way better than negotiation or tactics or, oh, let me do this and that and let me learn this neuro-linguistic programming so I can
Right.
Jedi mind trick this person into, like, all of that is cool. Maybe it's worth your time to research, I don't know, but I've never learned any of that. The thing that's always helped me in sales, and I did timeshare sales before this and other like face-to-face really crappy sales jobs, it's always been just getting to know that person, asking them questions, sharing about myself so they feel comfortable sharing about themselves in an obviously not awkward way or obvious way, and just kind of fitting it into the conversation. And I'm hoping that it will help, especially women, see that we have a really big competitive edge. When they say, like, when you go into any business, you should go in with an unfair advantage. Our unfair advantage is our voice, is our ability to make people want to share with us. Like the same red seller who's gonna kind of brush off RJ and be like, well, what do you want to give me? And then RJ is going to get all hard to him too. For us, it's totally different. Like just the sound of your voice. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on your toes. Like we're able to kind of maneuver the conversation in a much more friendly, gentle way where they start to open up. And I'm just hoping I get someone who wants to talk to me and tell me all the problems that they have going on. And I'm just going to listen. And that's what I'm banking on, my secret weapon of emotional connection.
All right. So you can't pick yourself. If it's not you, who do you have winning?
I mean, obviously you, because you've won
Oh, okay.
every time.
Hey, you're the first person that I've asked that said that. I just want you
Really?
to know. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm gonna bet on the reigning champion. That's like the Golden State Warriors win 2 years in a row, and I'm gonna like bet on the other team. No way.
Right. Right.
I guess statistically, this would be the time you lose, but also, I just feel like because I've watched all the closers Olympics and I've watched everybody close a lot, I do genuinely think you're the best because of the way you're able to keep sellers engaged and on the phone. I think a lot of people are just so salesy, and I'm turned off by that, honestly.
think most people are. And that's
Yeah.
what I love about your answer right there. And what can we expect to see from you? It's not you're going to play those mental manipulation mind games. You know, I mean, I personally think that is, if it works, it's a rare occurrence. And it's like that to me is not a repeatable process that I want to have in my business.
No.
And I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that, like you just said, can make that a mental and an emotional connection based off of their story. What's the need? The reality of it is that, yeah, we all hope that we get on the phone with someone that has a story as to why they need to sell their real estate and how we can be the solution there. And we put all the puzzle pieces together. And then that leads to us buying their house. I mean, the deal that I got in the finals to win the Closers Olympics, why did I get it? There was a story. She bought it at an auction, sight unseen. They moved. They need to just sell it. They know it's a full rehab. They just really want to get their money back out of it that they had put in on it. There's the story. Now it's about me putting that together. And then, yeah, there was a couple things that I had to do to get the signed contract right then and there. But that's just part of being a closer, right? I mean, I don't think it was anything that I did in particular. I just think it was I went for the kill. And it's about, okay, that's where I think the Closers Olympics part of it really stands out. It's like, do you have what it takes to say, well, go get your husband and put him on the phone. Let's talk about it right now. And then you hear the husband in the background talking. You know, there was these little moments that really closed the deal, but majority of it was just me listening to her story.
100%.
And that's what I love about what you said there. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great event. And I love the fact, you know, for someone like you, essentially came into the game, like you said, 3 months after the first Closers Olympics. Here you are 3 years later. Now you're in the Closers Olympics. You didn't even have to go through one of the qualifying runs because you put yourself out there. And because of that, you get the opportunity to go showcase your skills and how you help people. So love that. And I wish you the best of luck. I am going to have to kick your ass, though. So I apologize about that. I hope you enjoy, you know, fighting for second place there.
We'll see.
I love it. Well, Tadi, for the people that are new to you, where's the best place for them to follow you and consume more of your content?
Yeah, so on all platforms, Tadi Virtual. Instagram is like where I'm most active, in YouTube, of course. And the Closers Olympics. I mean, watch me on the Closers Olympics. I'm super excited about that. I think a lot of people will get to see a totally different side of wholesaling, and I'll say like the softer side of wholesaling.
There you go. Love it. All right, guys, that's our episode for today. If you enjoyed what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review. Remember, that's all I accept. If you don't want to give us 5 stars for whatever reason, remember, you just head on over to Steve Trang's Real Estate Disruptors. He openly accepts less than 5 stars. I only accept 5 stars, so make sure you leave that for us. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Tadi.
Thank you.